Okay, thanks, Nick. That's really, really helpful. So I'm now going to hand over to Nicola, who is going to talk just briefly about her own research, which has been local research, titled Zoom or Room, aptly. So I'll hand over to you, Nicola.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just to mention also, Nicola is Professor of Developmental Psychology at the University of Sussex. Sorry, Nicola.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, so I will just say at the start, there's a lot of information on my slides, but some of that information is just so that you know that it's there. You will be getting the slides afterwards, so you can look at that at your leisure. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on slides that do have text on them. The text is there for you later. So this was research that was funded by the local Applied Research Consortium, Kent, Surrey, Sussex, of the National Institute of Health Research, and it was a specifically a COVID project. So what we were looking for specifically was to create some research-informed guidelines for communication in online therapy. So I think we all know this slide here, so we all know what happened. We had COVID-19. So this research started in July last year and went on till this January. So we had this overnight shift. Everybody suddenly had to change their entire practice, all sorts of different things. So the people we talked to were doing CBT, they were doing video interaction guidance, speech and language therapy, diagnostic assessments, CAMS services. We also talked to people who were doing remote schooling and play-based activities with children individually and in groups. So our main research aim is just at the bottom of this slide here, we were really interested in whether communication could be as closely aligned online as in person. And that just reminds me to say that we've completely avoided the use of the word remote, and I wish I could just get rid of that word as a description of online interactions, because I think it has a kind of lots of inferences in it. So we wanted to look at how online interventions might be similar or different to face-to-face and how people might adapt their methods. The background that we were doing this from was video interaction guidance, and I should just say that I'm currently in training as a video interaction guidance practitioner. So VIG is particularly focused on talking to clients about improving communication in a particular relationship, and it's very much focused on very fine analysis of small bits of video, so you can see we use that in our research. So we did three things. You can see at the bottom of this slide. We analysed actual videos of people engaged in a therapeutic intervention online and in person. We did a survey of practitioners, and we did in-depth interviews with practitioners. So I'm just going to describe very briefly those three different things and what our results were. So for the video analysis, we took clips of recordings of video interaction guidance sessions. So these were shared reviews between a practitioner and a client. We had 9 different practitioners, so it's quite a small sample. There were lots of issues about getting access to these, as you can imagine. So we have 51 clips from 9 different practitioners. And what we did with these clips, I'm just going to jump straight to the next slide. So we had people code these interactions, and they coded them. We've actually got 2 different sorts of coding. We've got very fine coding, which we haven't completed yet, but we also had global coding. So basically, people would look at these clips of an online interaction and an in-person interaction with different clients and different practitioners, and they would code them on a 0 to 5 scale. So it's very simple in terms of the warmth of the dyad, the responsiveness of each person, how much they seem to be responsive to the initiatives of the other person, and the time and space. So you'll know, because we were talking about therapeutic alliance, there is that whole having time, having space for the other person. And we also coded them in terms of balance. So balance, the best score for balance is 3 out of 5, because it basically says it's an evenly balanced interaction between those 2 people. We managed to get people to code those reliably, so we looked at the inter-rater reliability on that. And the next slide shows you the average scores for the online interactions and the in-person interactions for each of those 5 codes. You don't need to look in detail at this, but basically on this side of the graph you've got the code, so this goes up to 5, so 5 is better, basically warmer, more responsive and so on. So this is in person and this is online. So all you need to see from this really is that the online ones are a little bit lower, but not significantly lower. So this is what we found for this small sample of real therapeutic interactions. So the warmth and the client responsiveness was slightly lower, but as I say, not significantly so. The time and space one, again, was a little bit lower. And we felt that that was something that could quite easily be adapted. So I think, remember that this was when online interventions were quite new to people. So some of it is about giving time and space, and the balance again was not significantly different. There were also weren't differences between the start and the middle and the end of a session, which was quite interesting. So that was the video analysis. Oops. The survey, we basically asked any practitioner who wanted to do the survey to answer lots of questions about the difficulties they'd had in taking meetings online, the advantages and disadvantages, the differences in interaction quality if they felt there were some of the technical factors, and how their attitudes might have changed. Obviously, I'm not going to report on all that here because there isn't time to do that, but we did have quite a range of people working in both mental health and physical health and education and social care. Half of them worked with children, half with adults. Most of them worked with individuals, but some with groups. In general, our 72 people that we spoke to, again, you can argue that maybe people looked at this survey because they felt positive about it. It's hard to say. The 83% of the people that we spoke to agreed either strongly or somewhat that they could, in principle, have good communication online. There were lots of concerns, which I won't go into. People felt it took slightly longer to establish rapport. And relating to this question we were asked, in general, people felt it was easier if there'd been a prior in-person relationship. And because of the concerns that Nick talked about in terms of detecting non-verbal behaviour. But as Nick said, there are things that you might be able to do in an online setting that would kind of try and improve those issues. And there was a real mix of views about intervention effectiveness. There were some advantages, some disadvantages. But certainly for the people who answered our survey, 82% of them said that they would continue some practice online. I'll talk about client choice in a moment. So I'm just aware of the time. The interviews, most of the people that we interviewed in depth were using video interaction guidance and similar methods, and a lot of them were clinical psychologists, some of them are educational psychologists. And we asked them in-depth questions about their experiences. I'm not going to go through these slides, so these slides are just to show you that there was a real range of views, and when you have the slides you will be able to have a look. So, some people said they haven't found a problem with getting attunement. Another person felt they had no idea how the client was reacting. People felt that they'd been really creative and had changed their styles. A few people, or one person here, reported feeling quite de-skilled. People loved the time advantages they got from working online. If there's technical problems and it's slow and buffery, that's a problem. But people in particular, one message that we really got from most people in these interviews, they felt it was different from face-to-face, but not necessarily less. Just going on to one of the powerful things that I'm going to finish this with in a moment is that there was a real opportunity to have more leading from the client, more. So I think Nick mentioned this a little bit in terms of, you're able to talk about how you want to meet, and it really puts that up in the forefront. So the idea was that you could co-create, you could co-produce how you wanted your therapy to be. there's some real equalities issues that we mustn't forget. So some people don't have access to the technology or to the fast broadband. Maybe building rapport takes a bit longer, but very much so people felt that they could use blended methods where each was appropriate. This study, of course, wasn't perfect. We didn't have the resources to look at direct views of clients. Different client groups had very different experiences. Our participants for the survey, particularly, probably was self-selected. Quite a smaller sample of videos, but we did get a reliable coding scheme, and video interaction guidance was a useful framework to think about that connectedness. Finally, I just want to say that we got a message from all three methods that was a real opportunity to provide more support to groups who might otherwise not be able to access services or to engage. But those people need equipment and they need fast, affordable broadband. Practitioners need time and support, so it's not a case of being able to do things quicker and spending all your time on Zoom. And that curation of your Zoom window that Nick was talking about, it's a really important opportunity to think about that. And of course, those decisions have to be made with the best interest of the client in mind. But there's a real opportunity to have that co-creation and that discussion with your client about what they would like. And of course, we haven't really talked about the whole issues of information governance and safety. So that really needs addressing. So finally, that's just to say that we did collate our information into a set of guidelines, and they're online, so you will get that link. And I know I've hurried through that a little bit, but I'm just going to find my stop sharing screen button to come back to Kathy.
Okay, so again, thanks ever so much for that, Nicola.